Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires, about to put me through torture, is Joe Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
You already know. Behind the scenes, this is our second try. Good old technology. But my problem is I'm out of toilet paper. Don't worry though, I'm using lettuce. Today, the tip of the iceberg. Tomorrow, remains to be seen.
Now, we've been locked down in Minnesota for a month now. Do you have the toilet paper? Did you stock up while the store shelves were full?
I've been stocked since February. I'm not hoarding it, but the old Boy Scout in me, I am prepared, be prepared. And I always told my wife and the kids, and I think I bitched about it on the podcast, just be ready for it. We're heading for another wave of shutdown, even though as we're speaking, they're actually giving out vaccines and stuff. But I just told just be ready. We're not in any danger of, we're in Minnesota. I mean, we get a foot of snow, 2 feet of snow, whatever. We're open in a couple days. But like our friends up in the New England, New York area, they're going to get a nor'easter and blast them with a foot of snow. And that's shutdown time for them. So for us, it's easy. But for them, just be ready.
I have not been to the store because I don't need to go. But I know the last time I went, paper towels were gone. They still had some toilet paper, but they were putting up the thing that you could only buy, one package.
Yeah.
But the problem is, for me, I'm a single guy. One package, 24 rolls. That's enough for like 2 years.
Well, especially when you're at work half the time, at least nighttime.
Yeah. So I'm also one of those people who I ordered the toilet paper so I could get the stuff made from bamboo rather than paper because, I'm trying to help the environment.
Yeah.
And we just recorded yesterday.
Yeah, that's how dedicated we are.
So finally.
Not really. I was busy watching a Big Bang Theory with Leonard Nimoy in it, and I get a text, "Oh, we're going to go at 7?" And I'm like, all right. Because then I'm like, Corey, what in blazes are we possibly going to talk about, especially after that 2-hour extravaganza preview special last week?
Well, while I was at the group home, I wanted to talk a little about the quarantine because all the clients are quarantined in their room because we've had 3 staff who had COVID. So the clients are all in their room. So there's really not a lot to do there because they're in their room. They're doing puzzles and mazes and watching. They're either watching MeTV, the old TV channels, or they're watching Lifetime Christmas movies. So not a lot for me to do. So I was on the Facebooks, and Mike Tiffenbacher put up a page from one of the old issues of the Comics Reader that he edited. Now, Joe, did you read the Comics Reader?
I only recall a few issues, which I believe I've already sold on the eBays. The one I had was headline, Stan Lee dead, shocking obituary inside, blah, blah, blah. And then at the very bottom, just kidding.
The Comics Reader was a comics news fanzine published from 1961 to 1984. Back in the 60s, so they were able to get contacts inside the comic business to say, here's what's coming out. So they were kind of the TV guide of comics. It was started, by Jerry Bales, father of comics fandom. It changed its name to the Comics Reader in 1962. It was the official bulletin of the Academy of Comic Book Fans and Collectors, which was, comic fans trying to sound more like science fiction fans, because comic fandom kind of came out of science fiction fandom. But once you got to 1971, there was this guy who bought it. His name's Paul Levitz. You've never heard of him, right?
Didn't he run that furniture store real popular? You Love It at Levitt's?
No, he ran DC Comics.
Never heard of him.
And under his editorship, it went monthly. It used to be 8 issues a year, but it went monthly. I found some information. So it's better that we're having to re-record this part. It went monthly, and he was able to get covers from Jack Kirby, Rich Buckler, Walt Simonson, Howard Chaykin. And the biggest thing about it was that it would list all the comics that were coming out. Because before that, comics fans really would have to go to the newsstand and hope, okay, what's coming out? Did I miss an issue? Was this canceled? What is this new book? And then by the mid-70s, the direct market was starting up. So they wanted to get information on sales, what was selling. Most of the sales information before that was from the statement of ownership that you had to put in to be able to sell your comics via subscription. If you look at magazines, I think magazines still do it, I think, where they have to have, okay, who owns this, how many copies are printed, how many are sold, how many are subscribed.
Only if they mail via second class.
Right. And comics don't mail second class anymore, so you won't find that information anymore. The other thing about that statement of ownership, a lot of the editors in the 60s and 70s said that they just made up the numbers. Julie Schwartz especially said, yeah, they'd give it to me every year and I'd just fill in what I thought.
Yeah. And the other problem with the numbers is that, back then it wasn't just Diamond Comics. It was all sorts of regional distributors. A lot of the numbers that I think you dug up, Corey, you were saying earlier, they were from the West or East Coast.
Yeah.
Almost nothing from the Midwest, because Midwest was Cap City, and I don't know if Cap City shared numbers with anybody.
It was more than Cap City, because just in the Chicago area, you had Cap City, you had Friendly Franks, and there was another one. I can't remember what that third one was, but they would, here are our top 100 comics, and the top comic at Capitol may not be the top comic at Friendly Franks.
Yeah.
And it may not be the same as Diamond, or it may not be the same as Seagate, or it may not be the same as Pacific. So what the comics reader did, they signed up a bunch of comic shops who would send them their sales information, and then they would put it all together and have the top 100 comic books.
So it's very, very sketchy. I mean, you're going to hear Corey rattle off numbers that are probably nowhere near what actually sold.
These are the numbers that these shops reported.
Again, nowhere near. You can extrapolate, but and the sad thing is even the publishers wouldn't share their numbers. They were myopic and zealous about guarding their numbers. It was ridiculous. You consider nowadays people trip over themselves. We're the number one movie. We're the number one book. We sold the number one ratings. Comics were almost backwards in trying to get actual real numbers, to the point where we don't know for sure. Got a good idea, but just keep that in mind when you're listening to these numbers, because they're going to sound low, and they are.
Well, what it is, these are just the sales at these shops. It's not all the shops. It's the shops that they have. And I'm going to put this photo up. Once you blow it up, it's a little blurry, but it lists all the shops. So this is like a cross-section of about 40 to 50 comic shops. And we know it's November of 1980 because the number one selling comic, and coming in at around, looks like around 15,700 copies, was Moon Knight #1.
I remember that one. Everybody was excited about it because Moon Knight had been popping around the Marvel Universe, appearing here, appearing there, and this was him finally getting his own book. And I remember buying it. I don't know if Pat and I were buying duplicates at the time. We might have been, but yeah, it was. People were very excited for this one.
I remember it coming up, and I liked the character from that two-part Marvel Spotlight story, which was Marvel Spotlight 28 and 29. And it had Jack Kirby covers, but inside it was drawn by Don Perlin. Not one of my favorite artists. And but then Moon Knight #1 came out. Doug Moench, Bill Sienkiewicz, and the thing about it was Moon Knight wasn't really done like a regular Marvel superhero. He wasn't, he wasn't wisecracking. He had a complex personality and a complex backstory, and he had a supporting cast, but he didn't really fight supervillains. He was a good fighter who had a bunch of gadgets. And through the first Moon Knight series, I don't think he ever crossed over with the Marvel Universe, because it was kind of standard that, you'd have your first issue, which would tell your origin, and then the second issue, one of the major Marvel characters would show up. Spider-Man, The Thing, Thor, somebody big would show up in the second or third issue. But I don't think, other than Werewolf by Night, any Marvel superheroes showed up till the very end of the run. The #2 selling book was X-Men #139.
Which shouldn't surprise us.
Which is 9,700 copies. It surprised me because John Byrne has always said that he drove the sales of the X-Men up, but it wasn't until he left that it became #1.
And that was kind of the weird phenomena about X-Men that a lot of fanboys forget. X-Men was the best-selling comic for the longest time, but nobody knew who they were. At that time, you could maybe go, hey, do you know Spider-Man? Yeah. Avengers? Who? Nowadays, everybody knows Avengers. But when I would talk to friends, what's your best-selling comic? X-Men. Who's that? Nobody knew who X-Men was. It was like the biggest secret the direct market had.
And I think what it was, they sold really good inside comic shops, but the newsstand lagged behind.
Which was good for me as a collector, because I knew if something sold out, just wait till the newsstand showed up. And back then, newsstands would have been
2 weeks after. It was always 2 weeks later.
I'm trying to think, was it Walden Books in the bookstores, B. Dalton bookstores?
Yeah.
There were a few newsstands per se, but not many. So a lot of times it'd be surprising. I think I told the story once when I was up north and Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man 300 hit, which was Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin.
That's issue 200.
200. Thank you. And it also was a double-sized shiny cover. Well, I'm up in this newsstand in Park Rapids. You guys, it's an old-fashioned soda shop. He's got a spinner with comics. He's got 4 of these on. I picked up all 4 of them. He thought he'd hit the jackpot because, he was just waiting to return these. And I was like, yeah, they're selling like $10, $15 on the back market already. And so, yeah, if you lucked out and you had a source, you knew something sold out, wait that 2 weeks, sometimes almost a month, especially in the case of Barnes & Noble, or not Barnes & Noble, B. Dalton Books. But yeah, you'd stop in the mall every week. Once they were on the shelf, you could run to the other ones and just pick them up. You kids just don't understand. Now you just, I go look on the eBays.
Or just buy it digitally.
No such a thing then.
No, but now there's no such thing as a rare book. Oh, it's sold out. Okay, let me go to Comixology. Boom, I got it.
Yep.
#3, was X-Men Annual number 4.
Now we will spare you the discussion we had as we tried to figure out what this one was about, because that was in the Lost podcast. But Corey, you figured it out.
Yep, it was called Nightcrawler's Inferno, and as you could tell by when it came out, it was after they had done the Death of the Phoenix story, which it just set them back and really hurt the schedule. This was drawn by Brent Anderson, who was also drawing Kazar at the time. And it's really clear when you read it that Chris Claremont said, you know that Dante's Inferno? Put the X-Men in it.
Yeah, we go down. And of course, the grand reveal at the end was the Sorceress Supreme that could actually summon the Eye of Armageddon. Or is it Armageddon?
Armageddon. Ooh, amaretto.
Yeah, just right out of the hand of or the neck of Doctor Strange, and I believe later on they retcon that she wasn't so damn powerful, because Doctor Strange checked it out and found out nope, imposter.
Number 4 really surprised me. New Teen Titans number 1 came in at number 4. And as we go through this list, you will see why DC had to eventually do the Crisis. It wasn't because, it's all too complicated. It's because, no, we need something to get these books selling. New Teen Titans number 1, it sold really well in the direct market, coming in at number 4. But I remember it took a while to sell on the stands. This was Marv Wolfman and George Perez, and this kind of shows the power of the direct market, because New Teen Titans in the 70s was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
If you've read any of them, they're goddamn awful. But hey, here's George Perez doing a DC comic, and it's a new number 1. Buy it, baby.
And it was hot. Not to mention the first appearance, the official appearance, was a DC Presents 25, 26?
Yeah.
The one with a Green Lantern, which itself is a really good story, but then they put an insert for New Teen Titans that was kind of them putting them together. So, yeah, and this you can't underestimate. I mean, let's just take a look at that list. I mean, I'm just looking ahead. I do not see any DCs, and I'm already into the top 20.
Yeah.
So for DC to make an inroad right there like that was probably not only shocked DC, but it probably shocked the hell out of Marvel too, because they, for the most part, had the lock on everything.
Coming in at number 5, Star Wars number 41, which was the third part of The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And we tend to think that Star Wars did really well when it started and then faded real quick. No, Star Wars was still selling really well. 3-4 years later after the comic started.
Yeah.
The next book is Avengers number 201, which was after that issue 200, which
double sided. Did Perez do that?
Yes, Perez did draw that. That's the story where Ms. Marvel got seduced by somebody from Limbo and had a kid. And I remember when Ms. Marvel was pregnant, and it was, Ms. Marvel's pregnant? Myself and my other comic friends were like, you heard Captain America have been hanging out a lot. Cap's the dad. Captain America's the dad. And instead it's this weird where she got like brainwashed into loving this guy and went into limbo with them. And it was another way for them to write off the character and get rid of it.
And then
I don't understand why Marvel would do that. A book would get canceled, and rather than, okay, we'll have the character kind of float around. Nope, get rid of him. Like Spider-Woman. Kill her.
Never last. No, go to Avengers Annual 10 for the repercussions on that one.
Yeah.
Which also is, by the way, the first appearance of Rogue. So if you're going to actually buy it, money, 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 money. Didn't Golden do the art on that one?
Yes, Michael Golden did the art.
So, anyways.
Right under that is Amazing Spider-Man. Looks like number 210.
210. That would be, they were doing a run of just one-shots.
Yep.
You know, for some reason. They had a good run, a really good run with up to issue 200, a two-parter with Punisher. Like every year, Punisher would show up. A one-shot with Dazzler, who was up and coming. And then... Marv
Wolfman left.
No, it really didn't come together until
around issue 223, 224 with Roger Stern and John Romita Jr.
Is that the two-parter with Juggernaut and Madam Web?
That came a little later, but they started their run around then.
That's when I remember it picking up steam again. But, you know, again, I can't even think of how old I was. I was just, you know, I'm in high school. I'm just buying out of lethargy. Spider-Man was the first book I bought, so I always bought Spider-Man. You know,
I was 16 during this month.
So I'd been 15, 16 maybe. Same.
Yeah. Let's see here. Next up, Fantastic Four number 224, which was the Doug Moench, Bill Sienkiewicz run. They did great work together, but I never felt that their Fantastic Four ever really quite came together. It always seemed kind of off and weird.
Yeah, I had picked up through 200, mostly through my cousin, and then I didn't pick up again as a regular till John Byrne jumped on.
Yeah.
And again, you're buying that off the steam that he had created from X-Men. I did pick up those issues eventually, but they're just not even making a memory. I think Spinks and Galactus fought in one or two of them.
No, this was before. This was after that, because the Spinks story was John Byrne and Marv Wolfman.
Okay. Again, it's just a big block of blur.
Yeah. Micronauts number 23 comes in at number 9.
Now that one I like.
That was during the Pat Broderick run, I do believe. And by then, in comic shops, this is selling around 4,200 copies. And then number 10, Epic Illustrated number 3.
Oh, yeah.
It was a $2 book. It only sold about 4,000 copies. But if you think about how much money it costs, your regular comic was 40 cents. Comic shops were happy to sell this thing.
Oh, yeah. And it had a lot of heat at the beginning.
Versus a 40-cent? Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. I remember being on it. It was a lot of fun reading. I'm still trying to put the collection back together, but, Dreadstar, Metamorphosis Odyssey was part of it. I know where they are. I'm not going to. I was going to go grab my copy. I could read through it, but maybe we'll save that for another run, another podcast where we'll go through all the epics.
The other thing I find interesting was they do chart where it is this month and where it was last month. For this month, it was number 10. The month before, it was number 3. And that was for issue 2. So I would imagine that issue number 1 might have been the best-selling comic that month in comic shops.
It was highly anticipated. Plus, it had a Silver Surfer Galactus story.
And a Frank Frazetta cover.
Yeah.
Number 11 is Marvel Team Up Annual number 3, which was Spider-Man, Hulk, Power Man, and Iron Fist.
And Machine Man as a cameo. Actually, it says Spider-Man had just kind of a cameo in it. So.
Yeah. Well, Hulk had had a top 10 TV series. Although, if you notice, this is at the height of the Hulk TV series. It's not even in the top 10, which surprised me. And there's something later on that will surprise you even more. Next is Conan the Barbarian. This is number 1. Let's see. It's hard to make out. It's either 117 or 118. It was higher up the month before because it was the anniversary issue and the last issue by Roy Thomas. Next up is Iron Man number 140, Captain America 251. Joe, what was Captain America 251?
I wasn't reading it at the time. I'm not sure.
That was the Roger Stern, John Burns run, and it was the first part of the Baron Blood.
You know what? Maybe I was reading that. I don't know if I picked that up because of that, or maybe what was the Cat running for president issue before that?
That was 250. 250
So
was
yeah, I
Captain
probably
America
picked
President.
up at 250 and just rode with it for a while.
The next issue coming in at number 15 is Thor number 301, which wrapped up the whole Celestials, Eternals, Wagner Ring Saga crossover, which is still one of the most batshit crazy stories Roy Thomas ever did. It's okay, I'm going to bring the Eternals into the regular Marvel universe, and at the same time, I'm going to adapt Wagner's Ring operas so that Valkyrie is the Marvel Valkyrie, and Sigmund is actually Thor, and Odin had put Thor into, to teach him another lesson, and that history has to do with the Eternals and the Celestials, and it's still to this day. But he left, went over to DC, so Mark Grunwald and Ralph Macchio had to wrap it all up in this issue.
Oi.
Number 16 is Spectacular Spider-Man, and that was
It's like 48.
Yep, that's part of the Roger Stern run before Bill Manilow took it over again. Then is Marvel Team Up number 17 with Spider-Man
and Machine Man. Yep.
And the thing I find really interesting is, by this point, Marvel Team Up was really more of every issue's a fill-in, but it still sold really well because it was Spider-Man. Underneath that is Marvel 2-in-1 number 69. Nice. With Thing and the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I didn't know that Marvel 2-in-1 sold that well. It was one of those books that just kind of seemed to hang on, but I never, you go and you look and there aren't any issues that have, exploded in value. Right under that is Star Trek number 8, coming in at number 19. You know what surprises me about that, Joe?
That it's even on the list.
Yeah, because it was canceled. How long did that run?
Hang on, let me power up the old
Trek comic Marvel.
I thought 19.
Okay, it lasted from April of 1980 till February of 1982.
18 issues.
18 issues.
You can find it in your better dollar bins everywhere.
Yep. Right under that, 12th issue of ROM.
Which was still going strong. It had not hit the, I think the only crossover might have been Torpedo in the early issues, but they didn't hit the X-Men one, which was kind of the
X-Men was number 19, I believe.
Yeah, there was a two-parter with X-Men that got everybody all hyped up.
Right under that is a comic, Daredevil number 167. And I believe
I think that is the first Miller.
Nope, not the first Miller. First Miller was 157, but 167, I believe. No, it is not the first Elektra, but it is one of the early Elektra stories. No, Elektra was 169, wasn't she?
I'd have to look it up. I don't know.
But Daredevil is starting to pick up steam because it was bi-monthly at this point, and it had gone from number 22 to 21. So Miller is starting to get it to climb up. Number 22 is the Savage She-Hulk.
What number?
Looks like number 13.
I know I was talking with Gruber earlier today. We're just shocked at how high the prices on some of these issues, like She-Hulk 1, Spider-Man 1, are going. Or Spider-Girl. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Spider-Woman, of this era. It's like all of a sudden they've just exploded overnight. People realizing, holy cow, these books are old.
Well, this is 40 years ago. Almost exactly 40 years ago, to be honest.
But there's books that are older that don't have any heat.
Yeah.
Well, again, key, it's always the key. First, number 1 for Spider-Woman. First appearance of Savage She-Hulk, actually in number 1.
Right under that is the Incredible Hulk. So She-Hulk was selling just a little bit better than the Incredible Hulk. Then right under that is one that really surprises me, Marvel Spotlight number 9, which was a Steve Ditko Captain Universe story. And nobody was looking for those at the time.
Yeah.
Then at number 25 is Defenders number 89. I had all but given up on Defenders by this point.
I think I was still on board, but I couldn't remember much about it.
When J.M.D. Matias took over, I started reading it again. Let's see. Under that is Ghost Rider number 50. And now we're getting to books that are getting close to cancellation because Battlestar Galactica number 21, I believe it lasted 23 issues, correct?
24, I think.
24.
Let me fire up the old
Creatrometer. Notice what publishers we haven't talked about.
Anybody else?
Publishers.
23 was the final issue.
Okay. Master of Kung Fu number 94. It lasted until issue 125. Spider-Woman number 32 lasted until issue 50. At number 30, Savage Sword of Conan. Number, let's see, is that 37? No. It's got to be higher than that. 67. That's the 6. And then we get our next DC book, Warlord, number 39, which I'm amazed that we haven't got any decent reprints of Warlord.
Yeah,
because look at this. It was DC's second highest selling book at this point.
And people were going nuts trying to find it. So Warlord was hot at the time. And it helped in this Twin Cities because Mike Grell actually came to visit at not only a couple cons, but I know a in-store appearance down at St. Paul Comic. So people were looking for those issues. I don't know if they are now, but...
Next was DC Comics Presents. So think about that. DC's team-up book with Superman was their third highest selling book. And this was issue number 27, which was Superman and John Jones, the Martian Manhunter.
And the first appearance of Mongul, which is why you can find this book anywhere from $15 to $50, depending on the condition.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's one of those that's gone stupid. Not as stupid as Batman 313, the first appearance of Tim Fox. That one's up in the $200-300 range. So,
let's see here. Next was Man-Thing number 7.
That only lasted to what, 11 or 12?
Yep. So at this point, you're looking at Marvel books that are selling so poorly that they're already close to the chopping block.
Chop, chop.
Whereas we're just now getting to DC books.
Yeah.
Next was the Justice League, number 184, and Legion of Superheroes, number 269. Nice. Marvel Marvel shows up again with Fantasy Masterpieces, which was a double-sized reprint of the Silver Surfer comics from the 60s. Then is Green Lantern, The New Adventures of Superboy, and finally coming in at number 39, Detective Comics. So Batman sold this poorly.
Yeah, I remember that whole era of Batman up before Dark Knight Returns. It was on the verge of cancellation. A lot of these books, including the one I just mentioned, that was $300 now. I remember selling in almost the entire run at 25 cents a piece.
Yeah.
Nobody cared.
Right after that is Batman, number 329. Then Superman, The Flash, number 291. Action Comics, Mystery in Space. They had brought Mystery in Space back as an anthology book. And this is number 113. Then Brave and the Bold, which were Batman team-ups. Think about that. Superman team-ups outsold Batman team-ups in the direct market in 1980. Then is the Hulk magazine.
Oh, that's what that is. I couldn't make out what that was.
Yep. And
so where are we now?
We're at number 44.
44.
And they are reporting sales of around 1,200 copies. So that's how big the drop-off is, which kind of shows me the drop-off has always been really big.
So
I think there are a few books that everybody buys, but then once you get out of the top 10 to 20, it's some people buy them, but nobody.
Just to round out the top 50. Amazing Adventures, number 12, which was an X-Men rerun, and the early X-Men, because I remember reading those, and that was canceled. Adventure Comics, 477. Marvel Super Special, number 17. Which one was that?
Let me see what that one is. Marvel Super Special 17.
And while you do that, I'm going to look up Marvel previews.
That was Bizarre Adventures.
Marvel preview.
Marvel Super Special number 17 was the comic book adaptation of Xanadu.
All right, I got to find Marvel. Is that Marvel Preview?
Yep, that's Marvel Preview. It was one of the black and white magazines. It was Bizarre Adventures, and I think the character in it was Parallax.
Yeah.
There's your top 50.
Now, I'm going to jump into the next 50 quick because I found some interesting tidbits. The first non-Marvel DC comic is from our good friends up north. Coming in at number 54, Captain Canuck number 11, which had to be a regional thing because that book never showed up in the Midwest.
And I know that I actually would make a joke about it for years. For Free Comic Book Day, we are relaunching Captain Canuck. And they would put out the Free Comic Book Day comic and maybe one or two more, and the sales would be terrible. And then the next Free Comic Book Day, we're relaunching Captain Canuck.
Yeah.
Epic Magazine came in at number 10. Heavy Metal, which Epic was a knockoff of, came in at number 50. Let's see, 56. Yeah, and by this time, they were up to issue number 42. Right under that was the Spider-Man reprints of Marvel Tales. 121, they were getting into the early 70s of Spider-Man.
Now at 64 and 65, we got, is that the Rook, number 3? And
Vampirella 91.
Now, yeah, I couldn't make that out.
And above that, at number 59 was 1994, which was another Warren magazine. Which,
that's what
they are available on the Internet Archive because they've gone into public domain. And if you read them, they are awful.
Well, how about Eerie and Creepy, which came in at 67, 68?
They were still okay, but man, 1994 was just it was Warren trying to do heavy metal, except they couldn't get the artists. They were all written by Bill Dubay, and it was all just sex and violence with very little plot. And I've tried reading some of them, and it's not that they're offensive in that, well, this is porn. They're offensive in that this story doesn't make any sense, and it's just an excuse to show heads exploding and boobs.
Number 74 has Walt Disney Comics and Stories number 481. So now we're getting down into some of the different publishers. We got Mad Magazine coming in.
I want to point out that the DC Digests were in here. The Blue Ribbon Digest came in at number 58, and the Best of DC came in at number 61. You pointed out Mad.
Yeah, that was
Mad
number 79.
And the Mad Super Special.
And that Super Special was at 80. We're talking, that was what, 210, 216? I can't quite make out the number.
Looks like it's 216 and Super Special number, yeah, I can't make that out.
Buck Rogers is at 83, which was a Whitman comic.
And I don't think I've ever seen that anywhere. It's Buck Rogers number 8.
I know I've had it on eBay, but
I've seen packs of 1 through 3, which did the adaptation of the movie, but I didn't know they did any after that.
Let's see. There's Casper Digest, number 82. Spidey Super Stories.
Yep, the lowest selling Marvel book is Spidey Super Stories, which was still going in 1980.
Now, I'm just going to read off the next ones because we're going to come into a solid run for the rest of the thing. Because where are we now? 83. 84 is at Warren Presents number 9.
Which were reprints of older stories in Warren magazines, usually focusing on a single artist.
83 was Donald Duck, 322, again published by Whitman. Another Whitman at 84, Flash G. Gordon. Another Whitman, Battle of Planet of the Apes. And
no, not Battle of the Planet of the Apes, Battle of the Planets.
Oh, geez. See, I can't even read that. Number 7, yeah. But now, here's what I want to talk about. Sit back, because Richie Rich owns number 88 to 100. Richie Rich. I know it's various. There's Digest, there's Cadbury and Casper and Jackie Jones and
Jackie Jones.
Cash and whatever it is. They're all Richie Rich. From 88
and if you look,
to 100.
They all have the same sales of 155.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's just there were a few shops, they always order it. So it's if it's Richie Rich, we order 10 copies.
Yeah. Which is why, again, you can take this suspect for what it is. But again, you're just talking whatever. And does it even say how many shops reported?
Yeah, at the bottom it lists all the shops that report, such as Larry's Comic Shop in Chicago. Few that I know, Comics and Comics in San Francisco, which still exists, by the way.
Yeah.
Comics Kingdom in Chicago, Illinois. They were a great shop, by the way. They were just a great shop. Trying to see if there's any here any others I recognize. I'm gonna put this up. You'll see that the print is really blurry. So when you blow it up, you can't really read it that well. But I thought this stuff was fascinating.
Yeah.
Because if you look in the direct market, DC was just obliterated. And that's why, at first they did that DC Comics are not for kids anymore. And they were, at this point, they were pulling in a lot of Marvel talent. Gary Conway had come over. Gene Colan had come over. Roy Thomas. Think about that. Roy Thomas, who was Stan Lee's right-hand man, went over to DC. And if you read the interviews with him, he didn't want to do it. But the contract he was being given by Marvel, he couldn't work under, and he went to Stan and he said, Stan, look, here's this contract. What would you do? And Stan said, I'd go to the competition. And he came back to Marvel. I think he did 3-year deals at DC, and then for a while he worked at both DC and Marvel. And then he closed out his comic career, where that was the only thing he did. He closed that out at Marvel, and now he just does, he publishes Alter Ego, and he does some freelance writing here and there. But he kind of worked for Stan in Stan's different projects over the years. He's worked on some Marvel history stuff over the years. Marv Wolfman never really did go back to Marvel. George Perez went to Marvel and then came back to DC. Same with Gene Colan. Gene Colan never really quite came back to Marvel. He did a few things after Shooter left, because Shooter just hated Gene Colan's art, and for the life of me, I don't understand it. But DC treated Gene Colan very well when he went over there. Same for Don Heck. Don Heck eventually went over to DC because Jim Shooter, for all the talk Jim Shooter said about, we need to take care of the Marvel legends, when it came to guys like Don Heck and Gene Colan, no, he didn't. And he didn't really do good by Kirby either. So, and DC, as you can tell with Teen Titans was kind of where DC started to rise, where fans started paying attention to DC again. But it wasn't until Crisis that everybody kind of, their heads popped up and went, what? I guess I'm going to start reading some DC.
Yeah. No, I do got to admit I lucked out, because we saw it coming, Gruber and I, because obviously our guy was an old-fashioned guy trying to sell the stuff. And we ordered multiple copies of it, because at that time we were buying for resale. And I remember coming in that day, the first day of Crisis, and John's like, you got to look at this. And we went through it, and you look at that. Earth 3 gone. These guys gone. He was like, man, they're not holding back. Yeah, it was a good run. I mean, and other than the middle, which kind of got a little soft and wobbly, it's a solid read. I have it in my absolute collection. I might even have a trade paperback floating around somewhere.
And when I look at the list of books there are very few that I'm interested in going back and reading again.
Moon Knight I might, but I have it in the Essentials.
Yeah.
And again, I'm also still on Marvel Unlimited. Some of the other ones are nostalgia. I already read the Teen Titans one because I bought the showcase, Marv Wolfman showcase, George Perez that they did. I think 5-6 issues of. Yeah, it was a fun read.
Teen Titans holds up, I think.
I've got Micronauts in my collection.
Micronauts is fun, but boy, it doesn't hold up.
No, I've got Epic Illustrated. Like I said, I'm trying to put it together. I do have. It hasn't shipped yet, but I did get the Epic collection that I think covers that whole saga, because I never read it, and I'm just kind of looking forward to trying it. Although knowing some of the history behind it, I may be wishing I didn't. I've still got ROM.
It's a fun story, but you have to remember that it's really it's batshit crazy. I remember as a kid going, well, what the hell is this stuff about him fighting this dragon under this name when the Eternals are doing this stuff? What does that have to do with what happened last issue? I'm lost.
Yeah. I've got Star Trek. I bought the for a while back. They had a complete Star Trek with every Star Trek from Gold Key up through Wildstorm.
Yep, on DVD.
Yeah, so I've got that. I've still got my ROM. Savage Sea-Hulk I got in Essentials. Defender, I still have my Defenders collection. I don't know what I'm probably gonna blow it out eventually, because I know I have the Essentials covering a certain part. And those first issues, of course, are wildly expensive. Battlestar Galactica I've got. Master Kung Fu we got in our Omnibuy. See, a lot of these I've got in my essentials. Warlord is one. I think I have the showcase. I don't know how much of it covers, but
it only goes up to issue 24, I believe.
Okay, so I only got part of that. I've got the DC Comics Presents in showcase. I got Man Thing in the omnibus.
And those Man Thing stories are awful.
Yeah.
Even though it's Chris Claremont, Michael Fleischer did the first batch, and then Chris Claremont did the rest, and they're just awful. And to me, it showed that nobody can do Man Thing stories but Steve Gerber.
Let's see, Justice League of America. That's a run I don't have in any form. I wouldn't mind it because I picked it up originally when Zatanna showed up in her sexy new cat suit and just rolled through it through issue 200. Legion of Superheroes, is that after or before the Darkness Saga?
That's before, long before.
Okay, so I probably haven't. I've got all of Giffith stuff in one form or another. Fantasy Masterpieces I just ended up selling on the eBays. They're surprisingly expensive in good shape.
Which is weird because, I picked it up because it's, we're finally going to get these classic Silver Surfer stories. And then they had the Warlock stories in the back, except the printing was just god awful.
Yeah.
But then, you've got that Silver Surfer, the Masterwork, which had, all that stuff. And it's, Buscema was just knocking himself out on this stuff.
I think
it's funny how there's I was in a discussion about, again, politics in comics, and one person said, politics in comics is never sold.
Never.
And I pointed out the Silver Surfer and the Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and he said, yeah, but they bombed when they came out. And I said, I tell you what, you pick any comic from the time they came out, which one has been reprinted more? Which one has sold more over time? Which one has been put in hardcovers over and over and over again? You're going to find that Silver Surfer with that John Buscema art. You're going to get those Neil Adams, Green Lantern, Green Arrow stories. They've been reprinted over and over because there's demand. They're not going to reprint them if nobody wants them.
The only other one I'll mention is, and I think we glossed over it because we were trying to get to the non-DC, but at 53, Superman Family 204. And it didn't last much beyond that, but I have all the Superman Family because I collected all the Supergirls, or at least that's what I'm trying to do. And, of course, she was a major component of that magazine.
All right, Joe. Does Joe know? What was Superman Family before it became Superman Family?
Jimmy Olsen.
That's right.
Yep. That's one of the few I actually know because the numbering goes straight into it. Because they canceled Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, and some of the earlier Superman families were those things that would pop up as back issue, or not back issue, but like backstories in regular Superman, the private life of Clark Kent, or things like that. And they basically put those in Superman Family, which made it a better fit because it actually tied into the theme. And I think that allowed them at the Superman to actually expand the Superman stories. At least that's what I think. I don't know for sure, but
it seemed like Action always had a backup in it. Superman didn't, but Action would always have a backup in it. And even when I was just starting to pick up DC books, I would pick up Superman Family, even though at the time I didn't care for Superman stories. But the Superman Family was $1 comic. The stories were all self-contained, so I didn't have to worry about getting the next one. And even though they were kind of goofy and aimed at kids, the art was okay. And I was just starting to get into DC, so it was, okay, this will give me some idea of what a regular DC comic is like. Jimmy Olsen wasn't as stupid and gimmicky as he'd been in the 60s.
No, he was actually really a serious reporter. I mean, he talked about taking Superman seriously. He didn't want to know Superman's identity. He rarely used the pocket watch. He was actually, and that was such a shock for me because I said, oh, these are good stories. And then I go back and start reading some of the gimmicky Jimmy Olsen, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
And Lois Lane was the same way. She was in there. She was a reporter and acted like the reporter.
Yeah. It wasn't, because when you would think Lois Lane comics, it's more stuff of her trying to prove that Clark Kent's Superman, but that was really kind of what Mort Weisinger did. And by the 70s, they tried to get away from that. And then, by the late 70s, early 80s, with how society had changed, it's nope, we need to treat her seriously. We need to treat these characters a little more seriously, because even kids don't want the goofy, stupid, gimmick stories. They don't mind a story that is based around a twist, but the characters kind of have to be presented a little more realistically. We're not going to do these stories as if it's the Superman sitcom hour. And Batman, one of the things that I've been talking about for a while is there is such a lack of Bronze Age Batman reprints. We've got the Golden Age and we've got the Silver Age. But the stuff in the 70s that I'm reading on the DC Universe app, so much better than even the stuff in the 60s where they had, this is the new look Superman, where Julie Schwartz has made the new look Batman, where Julie Schwartz has made Batman serious again. No, but it wasn't until after the TV show and all of that, and then Denny O'Neil came in and kind of took Batman back to being a detective. And then got him out of the Batcave. Robin went off to college, and the stories became decent detective stories. And the other thing that I like about them is very different from now, in that Batman was just a guy. He had some gadgets, and he was good at hand-to-hand fighting. But it's not like the Batman now who is, I have planned for every eventuality, and I can defeat anything. I can defeat cosmic beings because I can outsmart them. No, he was just kind of a really good detective who knew some kung fu. and he gets his ass beat all the time.
Yeah, but he comes back and
kicks it. Yeah, he comes back later and he's figured out what's going on. But like one of the early Ra's al Ghul stories, where Ra's al Ghul's henchman, anytime Batman tried to step in front of Ra's al Ghul, the henchman just kind of grabs him and shoves him into a wall or knocks him on his ass. And it's like, well, this is not like the Batman we have now.
Yeah.
Well, it is our last episode before Festivus. Last episode before Christmas. And next to last episode for the end of the year. So, Joe, we're not going to have ads.
Well, good for us.
We're highlighting a charity, and here it is. During the holiday season, we here at Crazy Comics and Stories and the other podcasts in the Solitaire Rose Radio Network turn our ad space over to charities. And the first charity we're going to be highlighting is the Hero Initiative. It's at heroinitiative.org. It helps comic creators in need. The Hero Initiative creates a financial safety net for comic creators who may need emergency medical aid, financial support for the essentials of life, and an avenue back to paying work. Since its inception, the Hero Initiative has been fortunate enough to benefit creators with more than $1 million worth of much-needed aid, fueled by your contributions. It's a chance for all of us to give back something to people who've given us so much enjoyment. You can donate. You can go to Humble Bundle, and there's usually a bundle there that you can purchase and give part of those proceeds. There's an eBay site where you can purchase art and books that have been donated, and there are other initiatives that you can get out on heroinitiative.org. That's heroinitiative.org, one of the charities we will be highlighting this holiday season. And then, by the way, for those of you who did listen to the Mike Barron interview I did a couple of weeks ago for Solitaire Rose Radio, the Badger novel has been fully funded. It was fully funded. The Kickstarter ended on Saturday, which is weird because I'm talking about a Kickstarter that's ending in 5 days as if it happened 3 days ago.
The
But
miracle.
today,
It's a Festivus miracle.
But today, as we are recording, the Badger novel has been fully funded. So I want to thank everybody who listened to that episode and went over and said, "Yeah, I'll spend $4 on a novel, or even more," because there were all sorts of different things. But I do a lot of podcasts, and most of them are going to be coming back next year. So I talk about them right here.
All right, give me 10 seconds to blow my nose here. Okay.
And now we get to Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not where he talks about how he's gone through 5 boxes of Kleenexes in the last week.
I thought they were going to be cookies.
It's not Christmas yet.
Oh.
No, it's Joe. What's going on eBays?
Well, as I talked about last week, I got my eBay up and running, and things are starting to move out again. You lose momentum when you stop, but like I said, when I had the walking pneumonia, I couldn't walk up and down the stairs. I'd walk downstairs and have to wait a half hour to get enough energy to go up. But I'm feeling much better now. First 3 things out the door. Dell Movie Classics 12-950-410 from 1964. Corey, can you tell me what movie that the good folks at Dell did?
Not with that.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't either. It took me a while to find it. Zulu.
Haven't you talked about this one before?
I have. That's why I had it. I read it. I was okay. So I put it on eBay and sold it.
That is Zulu is not the John Wayne one, though, is it?
I don't think so. Let me just do a quick
Zulu movie.
Zulu movie, 1964.
No, it's with a bunch of people I don't know.
Yeah. So
Stanley Baker, Jack Hawkins, Lula Jacobson, and James Booth. James Booth? I thought he was dead. Didn't they hang him?
He might have been one of the 30 sick or wounded that this movie takes place during the Anglo-Zulu War. Back in January
I thought James Booth
1879.
shot Lincoln.
No, he went out to, every time you get a booth, he's the guy who gets a piece of the action there.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Movie shows how 150 British soldiers, 30 of them who were sick and wounded in a field hospital, successfully held off a force of 4,000 Zulu warriors. It's notable for showing, though, that the Zulu army was disciplined and governed by strategy. So
and Michael Caine's in it.
Yeah. Stanley Baker introduces Michael Caine. It probably never last. So, and Dell, always popular to be on a trend. They did a nice comic, good photo cover. I read it just because the odds of me digging out that Zulu movie is probably 0. The next one up was a Carlton comic from 1978, The Many Ghosts of Dr. Graves, with a horrendously pink cover. And of course, he's in a maze as he's trying to figure out his way through. Something about these Carlton comics, the whole ghost line, they're not really worth a lot. So if you're only spending, like I sold this one for $5, if you're $1 to $5, unless you find a super cherry mint one, even then, there's just not a lot of demand for these. It's like the whole Carlton line is very spotty in terms of what is hot and collectible and what isn't. And the last one that came out that I ended up selling was a giveaway from 2008, Simpsons Comics Treasure Trove from Bongo Comics. And I shouldn't say it's a giveaway. It was $3.99, but it was the cool thing about it. It had a poster inside, and I don't know if they ever did any other ones. It's kind of digest size, so it's one of those things that people might have overlooked a lot. So, but as I said, and I say every week, I'm open for business 24/7. If you're a listener of this here show and you see something you're interested in, let me know. Drop me a line through the eBay system because it allows me to send you a line back and give you my best offer. And oftentimes my best offer is better than anything I would give anybody else. The heathens of the world that do not understand what a national treasure this here podcast is. Over 10
Although
years.
our listeners still haven't created a Wikipedia page for us.
You've got 1 week to change that. Otherwise, it's coming up in the Festivus episode. Meanwhile, I got nothing to complain about eBay-wise. KRAYZ, I'm not even going to try it. Just come get some.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show.
Fire drill.
No, not where I go online and see how to make the best Bloody Mary in the world. I actually watched a video that was 20 minutes long on how to make a Bloody Mary. And I don't even drink vodka.
I've had one decent Bloody Mary in my life. It was, loaded with just everything, meat, cheeses. It had celery. It was just loaded. It was, I understand now. What do you want for breakfast? Bloody Mary.
No, it's Freaking and Geeking Joe. Even though we did it yesterday, what are you freaking on?
I've got to get my new crown tomorrow.
Well, it's about time. You've
it
always
is.
called yourself the King of Comics.
Yeah.
And Jack Kirby's pissed about that.
I never call myself that. I would never disparage. King of Comic eBayers, maybe. I'll make go with that one. But they called me and they were like, did you have COVID? No, I had a walking pneumonia. Oh, well, can you come in tomorrow and get your crown? Because it's been sitting there, for the last 4 weeks. You're only supposed to go a week or two with your temporary one, and here I'm pushing over a month. So, and I'm kind of glad they did call because I was kind of wondering when the hell I was going to actually get it done. But now that they've called, I'll have it, and I'm sure next week I'll have something to bitch about during the Festivus episode. Other than that, that's really about it. Other than the temps have actually gone kind of cold here. 14 above with 2 below wind chill. And boy, I'm glad I didn't have to go anywhere, but the streets were just nasty last night. It's like we one thing about us Minnesotans, we can drive in the snow, but we forget about it. Especially since the first snowfall was 2 months ago?
Yeah.
It wasn't even that much. It was just a little tiny dropping, but it got everything so slippery. People are like, yeah, I can drive 50 and a 40. Oh, hey, you know what? Truck's not stopping. Hey, I wonder if that car in front of me will help me stop. Anyways, that's all I'm freaking on. Corey, what you freaking on?
I got into the office job this morning with an email saying, hey, we'd really like you to take on some more responsibility. Here's a class that we sent you late Friday. Why haven't you taken it yet?
Yeah, you slacker.
To which I responded, are you not listening when I say that I'm overwhelmed and can't keep up on the things I normally have to do anyway? And I sent them the report of how much time I've had when I'm not on the phone. Last week I was in training for 10 hours for a client we already have. Plus, all the other stuff. If you add up all my non-phone time last week, it came to a grand total of 3 hours and 45 minutes. Now, that might sound like a lot, but that's also all of I get 2 15-minute breaks a day. So that's 30 minutes. So that's, I only had 45 minutes off the phone that wasn't part of my break time. And they're trying to put more responsibility onto me.
It's your own fault for being so damn good.
I guess so. But it was just, I've had low-level anxiety for the last week or so anyway, because of, I'm working more at both jobs. And even though, boy, I'm going to be real happy on Friday when those checks come in. But if I don't have time to kind of power down, I get that low-level anxiety. And then that ramps it up even more to the point where it's like, I feel like I'm drowning here and I'm asking you for some help and you're throwing me anchors.
Well, they're good anchors.
No. No,
Not good.
not Anchor devices, because
Oh,
they're one of my favorite consumer electronics. They do the Bluetooth speakers I like. They created the smart bulbs I have. No, not Anchor. Anchor.
oh, my bad.
Yeah. So while I opened Box Day on Saturday when I got it, I was at work most of the weekend, so I haven't even cracked open any of those comics. And this week is going to be just as crazy with me being at the group home a lot. But the good thing is that Thursday, Friday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week, I'm not at the office job. So basically, I'm going to get to sleep in. And if I don't get to sleep in, I'll wake up at the group home, come home and sleep in.
When you're at the group home, do you have to sleep in full PPE?
Yes,
Oh,
I don't have to wear the face shield, but I do have to wear the gown, and I do have to wear the face mask, and that's hard for me to sleep in one of those masks. But the thing is, you don't sleep well there anyway, because there are two clients that if they get up, you need to get up because they have trouble walking, and at night they won't ask for help. So if you're not there, when they bend over to pick something up, they're going to fall. So I become very attuned to, oh, that's a walker, got to get up. Now, no, they've tested everybody in the house. None of the clients have COVID. None of the staff who were tested have COVID. So we're coming off that level 4 next Monday. But yeah, it's not the best sleep in the world. That's why, like today when I got home, my head is kind of filled with mush for the first hour or so when I'm home, which is good that I get an hour to kind of, completely wake up, get some caffeine in me. And then, Wednesday. I don't do overnights on Wednesday because I cover the wrestling. Thursday, I'm just going to sleep in. Not going to set an alarm. Just when I wake up is when I wake up, and I'm not going to care. But most of the stuff I'm going to do, people are like, oh, what are you going to do on all those days off? Well, I'm going to finish sorting and putting stuff in the comic room, and maybe do a lot of baking, and maybe some podcast projects. You never know. Never know. Never
you
know.
just don't know.
Joe, what are you geeking on?
Not a lot going on geek-wise. I did actually get one of my books read that I got in my box day. It's called The Book Tour by Andy Watson. This is published by Top Shelf, brand new. It's a page-turning, Kafkaesque dark comedy in brilliant retro style. The graphic novel watches one man try to keep it together while everything falls apart. I'll read the synopsis on the back. Upon the publication of his latest novel, G.H. Fretwell, a minor English writer, embarks on a book tour to promote it. Nothing's going according to plan, and his trip gradually turns into a nightmare. Now the police want to ask him some questions about a mysterious disappearance, and it seems that Fretwell's troubles are only just beginning. It says, in his first book for adults in many years, internationally acclaimed cartoonist Andy Watson evokes all the anxieties felt by every writer and compresses them into a comedic gem of a book. Witty, surreal, and sharply observant, The Book Tour offers a captivating lesson in letting go. Now, usually I'll read, it takes me a lot to want to get into like a non-superhero read. I just got to be in that right mood. And I wasn't quite sure if I was there, but I bought this originally. I recommended it on one of the preview books just because it just sounded interesting. And it's got a picture of the writer sitting there with his books, a humongous pile of shelving of other books. And as I started to read it, it just compelled me to keep going forward. And I about a half hour in, I realized I'm halfway through this thing and I want to keep going because I want to find out how it ends up. And it just keeps going and keeps going. And the ending was kind of almost a British sensibility ending. I have no idea if Andy's British or not, but it was just amazing. And I was like, wow, this is I've never read anything like this. You might find it, Corey, kind of a mystery thing, or you might feel anxious about it because you're more of a writer than I am. But this was a fantastic read. I could not recommend picking up a copy, being as it just got published by Top Shelf. So you should be able to go to your friendly neighborhood comic shop and get a copy if they're a good comic store, or have them order it, or just go over to topshelfcomics.com. I'm sure you could buy one direct. So I was amazingly delighted with this book and absolutely loved it. And as Corey said, that we basically 24 hours ago, we were still potting. That's pretty much all I get. Oh, I almost forgot. I actually got to have a couple of nice phone conversations. Our good buddy Eric Turbo Jackman called from Florida. We talked a lot of politics, as we want to do. It's always fun to talk with him. He's conservative. I'm more liberal. And we just talk till we agree. And then we stopped and talked Star Wars, because I told him we're both up to date on Mandalorian, and we really enjoyed it. He, too, is dying to talk Picard, even though I haven't seen the last episode yet. I thought I'd get to it today, but when I picked up the book tour, it just burned all my time I had to do anything. And after he hung up, I was doing a little eBay, and then my old buddy Pat Gruber called. And it's always fun to talk with him. Again, our conversations are wide-ranging. Talked a lot about comics. Talked a lot about, his mom's in a group home, bored out of her skull because she can't have any visitors. Fortunately, her son is a healthcare worker, so he's allowed to visit when they're not in lockdown. But always fun to talk to Pat. I conveyed, that Aaron from Collector Connection up in Duluth remembers us from when we used to go to his cons, and it was just kind of fun. So if you haven't actually talked to anybody on the phone recently, somebody you normally would, I would say go ahead, pick up the phone and give them a call. You'd be surprised, especially in all this isolation, mask wearing stuff. Just, how they used to say, the old Bell commercial, reach out and touch someone. Maybe not say it that way, but you know what I'm talking about.
I wouldn't say that anymore.
Oh, I would.
Because, you could get in trouble.
Yeah, I know. But, me, Trouble's not my middle name, but my fifth to the end middle name.
Oh.
So all in all, a pretty good day. Like I said, tomorrow I got to go get my crown.
Dun, da, da, da.
Dun, dun, dun. Anyways.
Is it like with Imperial Margarine, where you take a bite in it and then you hear that music and you get a crown on your head because you're eating crappy margarine?
No, but I usually walk around and go, you may think it's butter, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's anyways, for those really
it's
old.
It's not nice to fool Mother Nature.
Promise. So for those of you really old catching all those butter references, good for you. For you young kids, Google it. Corey, what you geeking on?
Let's see here. First, I did not have a lot of free time over the weekend, but what free time I had, I used to finish reading the book Nitro, The Incredible Rise and Inevitable Collapse of Ted Turner's WCW by Guy Evans. Yes, I have read a number of books of how WCW fell apart, including The Death of WCW by R.D. Reynolds, our friend who does Wrestle Crap Radio. This one gets into more of the corporate end of it rather than the wrestling end of it. But the stuff he has from once Eric Bischoff went home, and then they brought in Vince Russo to the collapse. You read that, and your jaw just drops. And you don't understand how Vince Russo ever got another job again, not just in wrestling, but anywhere. Just the stuff he did behind the scenes was insane. And it's amazing. They were doing so well that corporate was kind of, I don't understand wrestling, but it's getting ratings, so let them do whatever they're doing. Until AT&T came in and looked at the books. And even Guy Evans misses out on the fact that with WCW, they have all these costs, but the only revenue that was WCW's was ticket sales. It wasn't the advertising sold on any of their shows, and they had tons of TV time. You had 2 hours on Saturday, an hour on Sunday, 3 hours on Monday, and 2 hours on Thursday. They didn't get any of the revenue from those ads counted toward the revenue WCW brought in. It was just ticket sales. Toys went to a different division. All of the other merch went to a different division. It was this weird corporate thing. And I imagine if somebody went and actually went through and did an accurate accounting rather than, well, this goes here and this goes here and this goes here, there's no way they were losing as much money as they said they were. But there were two things that killed it. First was the fact that the attendance had cratered. In 1998, they were selling out 20,000 seat arenas twice a week. They weren't doing sort of house shows. They were just, doing the TV shows. 20,000 seats every week. When they do a pay-per-view, they'd sell 40 to 50,000. By 1999, Nitro was selling at maybe 2,000 tickets. And Thunder, they would tape at the same time afterward. And by then, half the audience had left because, oh my God, I've been watching wrestling for 3 goddamn hours. The other thing that I am...
One more. No, I was going to say, put the name of that book out again.
Nitro, The Incredible Rise and Inevitable Collapse of Ted Turner's WCW by Guy Evans. Also, at the group home, because I read comics before I go to sleep, and I'm sleeping there a lot, I am reading Doomsday Clock. And I'm reading it an issue a night, rather than, I want to read the whole thing. Nope, reading one issue. And I have finally been able to wrap my head around it, because on its own, it's a good story. As a sequel to Watchmen, no. On its own, it's a good story, except that I can see why they kind of pulled it out of continuity, because there's all this stuff that's going on in it that wasn't reflected in the rest of any of the DC books. So it does kind of stand out on its own, but the ideas that Jeff Johns is putting in it are really well thought out. It doesn't have the level of detail and the level of care and the level of just unbelievable, this ties into this, ties into this, ties into this that Alan Moore did. But it is kind of a one step up from your typical DC comic. So if you could completely divorce yourself from it being a sequel to Watchmen and more, okay, it's kind of its own thing and it's using some of the characters from Watchmen and it's invalidating some stuff from Watchmen. So yeah, this is an alternate universe version. It's a well done book.
I can't wait to see when you get to the final issues.
Well, I read issue 10 last night, which is where Dr. Manhattan is messing with Superman. So I'll be interested to see where it goes from there and where it would have went. And then really that's about all I've been up to. One thing I do like about sleeping at the group home and waking up and coming home is, I don't mind a commute to work if I'm going the other way. Because I'm leaving Bloomington and driving to Chaska, whereas everybody else is leaving Chaska and going to Bloomington. So I see the traffic jam on the other side of the road by the time I'm nearly home, and me is, nope, there are no cars here. I'm home in 15 to 20 minutes. Now, if I was going the other way, it would take 45 minutes. And it does remind me that even when they get the COVID stuff all sorted out, I don't want a morning commute ever again. Believe it or not, kids, it's just, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days till Christmas and 2 days till Festivus. And we always have a special Festivus show. So look out for a special Festivus show on Wednesday, which is December 23rd, which is Festivus. And the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Corey, there's only one thing left to say. I feel like dancing. Not maybe a slow dance. So go ahead, hit my music.